Today we have with us Faith West Gorman, and she heads up our World University Games, and she is going to explain to us what they are, because I'm not familiar with them.
Well, thank you so much for having me today. It's my honor to be here. So I like how you gave me that introduction, because I'm going to explain what the games are. I'm going to go through the why we did this, what the structure is, etc. So the World University Games.
I'm sorry, Hope? Did you have a question or a comment?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Presentation. Let me get my head out of the way.
Sure. So the Universiade is an international multi-day, multi-sport event organized for university students between the ages of 18 and 25 by the International University Sports Federation. But for this presentation, I refer to them as FISU. New York State has been a host of these games. We are the only state in the country that has ever hosted the games, and we've hosted it 3 times. We hosted them in 1972 in Lake Placid, in 1993 in Buffalo, and now the 31st FISU Games will be hosted in 2023, again in Lake Placid. So these games have served almost as a spark for sustainable change in the North Country. These games will help promote the North Country and the New York State, actually, both nationally and internationally. So we are revitalizing those existing ORTA venues that I'm sure you're all familiar with. And so typically when you see these beautiful Olympic venues, sometimes instead of holding on to that legacy and that infrastructure, sometimes they can become relics. Well, New York State chose not to do that, and so by not doing that and revitalizing those venues through hosting a games, we become a relevant tourist destination, and we establish a legacy that will continue to drive the economy for future generations. And I'll take a moment at the end of this presentation to talk a little bit about what we've already been doing as far as those sports and hosting events. So now that you kind of understand the games, I want to speak a little bit about the games structure. So in 2018, 4 host partners signed an attribution agreement with FISU. And FISU, you can look at FISU as the IOC. They are the governing body of these games, giving these host partners license to hold the 2023 games in Lake Placid. Now the host partners are, and I've tried to put in here kind of compartmentalizing everyone's role. There's the host city, which is the village of Lake Placid. Then there's a USI-USF or the NUSF. They are, you can look at them as those are the people that get all the NGBs together, and they make sure to send the athletes to these games. Then we have the Olympic Regional Development Authority, or ORTA. They are a host partner acting on behalf of New York State, and they also manage most of the venues of these games. And finally, we have the Adirondack North Country Sports Council, or I refer to them as the Organizing Committee. I refer to them as LP23. They basically are responsible for organizing most, if not all, of these events. They're dealing with the athletes. They're organizing the accommodations and whatnot for the games. So what is the New York State World University Games Commission? Well, in 2018, the governor signed an executive order establishing the World University Games Commission, and we are charged with providing oversight and coordination of all efforts of state government that will be necessary to successfully bring the games to New York State. I presently work with 15 different agencies, departments, divisions, offices, and authorities to make this commission up. In fact, I'm honored today that I have one of my designees from ESD, Rich Gagliano, is in the room. He serves on a bunch of our marketing working groups and our ceremonies working group. And then I also work with Adam Ostrowski and Anna Packman on marketing, and Brendan Healy and Jay Vito do tremendous amount of work administering that grant for ESD. So as you see, I have a lot of acronyms up here. I have ORTA, Empire State Development, DOB, SUNY, DOT, DOH, ITS, DEC, New York State Police, and DISHES. And then also involved are Parks, OGS, Ag and Markets, Docks, and Division of Military and Naval Affairs. So we have a lot of groups working together on this. And within this commission, the governor needed to appoint a chair. I was appointed as the chair on behalf of ESD, and my role is essentially to organize all of these agencies together to work to help support and drive these games forward. There are 23 functional areas within these games, and when I say a functional area, it can be security, it can be medical, transportation, accreditation. So within that, the commission designees sit on each one of these working groups that we've established. So obviously on public safety, I have NYSP, I have DISHES, I have OEM, I have OIEC, and then they will work with private security, who is contracted by the organizing committee. We have medical, obviously DOH is on that one, transportation, DOT is involved, and marketing and sponsorship. I have a lot of help from ESD on that one. So I have many working groups to how we function together as partners in these games. So let me give you some facts about the games themselves. They take place January 12th through the 22nd, 2023. We have 85 medal events. Assuming 600 universities will be in attendance, that should equate to 50 plus countries, and 1,500 athletes and coaches will be participating. We just received the forms for all the countries that are confirmed on Monday, and so they're going through them all, but they're anticipating at least 1,500 coaches and athletes. So now I want to show you where all this is taking place. If we start over to the left, you'll see that we have Roos House, which is at SUNY Canton, Maxi Ice Arena, which is at SUNY Potsdam, and Cheel Arena, which is at Clarkson University. This is where all the preliminaries of ice hockey will take place, both men's and women's. And one other note, SUNY Potsdam is also housing all of the hockey players at Knowles Hall. There'll be about 535. I do want to just point out quickly, as we're talking about hockey and we're talking about Lake Placid, Russia and Belarus will not be participating this year. That was a FISU decision because of the war in Ukraine. And so then in this central area, we have the Saranac Lake Civic Center, which is also the recipient of a ESD grant, and they will be hosting curling. We have the Olympic Center, which will host speed skating, short track speed skating, figure skating, and the finals of men's and women's ice hockey in the Herb Brooks Arena. And also at the Olympic Oval, the speed skating oval made famous by Eric Heiden's 5 gold medals in 1980, that will host long track. And then we'll have the Olympic Jump Complex, which will host obviously ski jumping, as well as the other half of Nordic Combined. And then we'll have Mount Van Hovenberg, which will host Nordic Combined, cross country, and biathlon. And Whiteface Mountain will host alpine downhill skiing. And then if we go down to North Creek, you'll see Gore Mountain will host snowboard, ski cross, and parallel. And within these areas, as I had mentioned, we have to have accommodations. So I've already told you about the accommodations at SUNY Potsdam for the hockey players. We will also be utilizing many of the hotels within the Lake Placid region for some of the athletes. And Paul Smith's College actually will host a lot of the Nordic athletes. I want to say they have around 525 athletes staying at Paul Smith's. And down near Gore Mountain in North Creek, the organizing committee is utilizing the Great Escape to house those athletes that'll be participating down in Gore Mountain. So this is a big footprint for these games. And finally, let's talk a little bit about the impact and the legacy. The overall impact, let's talk about ORDA for a moment. ORDA regularly measures the economic impact and will be doing so again after the 2022-2023 games. Tourism Economics provided a measurement back in 2019 and 2020, before all of this revitalization had occurred, and that illustrated that $273 million was provided as an economic impact to the region, which was a 75% increase over the prior year. And I told you earlier about what ORDA is doing. As a spark from these games, ORDA is also hosting the World Ski Jumping Competition in February of 2023, the ISU World Synchronized Skating Championships in March of 2023. They also last week hosted the Push Track and Bobsled competitions, and this weekend they are hosting the World Championships of Bobsled, and they're already booking international events into 2025 and 2026. I just showed you the map earlier on the expansion of the Olympic region. The Olympic region is no longer just Lake Placid, but obviously it spills out into Wilmington, Potsdam, Saranac Lake, Canton, and North Creek. And as far as the international exposure of the region as a world-class tourist destination, the FISU Games, as you had said, never heard about those. There's a 3% awareness of the FISU Games in the United States. However, in Europe, there's an 80% awareness. So broadcast is really important here so people can see what we're doing here in New York State. So the events in New York State, because of broadcast, will have the optimal coverage because it's all it's all broadcast in prime time in Europe. So we are working with ESPN. When I say we, LP23 is working with ESPN. They are the official broadcaster of these games. They will carry 20 hours of linear and over 194 hours of digital on all of their platforms. And in addition to that, the games will be carried on TSN in Canada, on FISU TV, on Eurosport, and potentially the Olympic Channel streaming. So in total, all streaming will account for 600 hours on all platforms. So everyone will be able to see all of these good events taking place. The only thing that you won't see is the preliminaries of ice hockey out in West. They'll be shown on ESPN. I think it's 1, 2, or plus. The gold and silver, obviously, and bronze rounds will be shown on those platforms. And finally, let's talk about the history a little bit. As you know, Lake Placid hosted the 1932 Olympic Games with Sonia Henney, the 1972 FISU Games, what I had just mentioned, and the 1980 Miracle on Ice and Eric Heiden Olympic Games. And they also hosted the 2000 Goodwill Games. So this is evidence that the return to the World University Games in 2023 is evidence that New York State continues to maintain its assets and hosting these high-level international competitions, and this event adds to the region's historical significance once again. So do you have any questions at all about the World University Games in less than 30 days?
Well, I'm blown away. I was not aware of this. It's exciting.
Yeah.
And it's great that New York is hosting it, as you said, for the third time.
Yes, third
When
time.
was
We're
the
the only state that's ever done it. North Carolina is interested in doing it, and we're going to be talking to them, help them through that process. And I think they want to do the summer in 2029, I think.
And if you said it and I missed it, I apologize, but are the teams university or college based, or is each team from a separate, or are universities and colleges combining players for a team, or how does that work?
I think, well, the NGBs decide who's coming, but to give you an example, only because I got this notification this morning, first thing, because I'm a hockey fan, they just announced the USA team for men's and women's. And the USA women's team is comprised of a bunch of D1 players from all over different colleges in the U.S. And the men's team is comprised of D3 players from many different colleges all over the United States. So they're forming these teams together.
So we
So
have
it's,
a United States team
oh yes,
in
we
FISU.
do.
That's it.
Yes,
And
yes.
and the kids
We're going to have a very good team.
are men and women from all of our colleges and
All of
universities.
colleges, and they must be a university student to participate in these games. Yes.
Community colleges count?
Yep. As long as you're taking classes, you're a university student.
And
yes.
and how many countries are competing against each other again?
Well, it depends on the sport.
Okay.
So I
But
would
in
say
general.
we have around 50 different countries, but one country may just participate in downhill. They may not participate in all the different sports, and others may have. I think Kazakhstan is sending hockey, and I think they're sending downhill, but we're just getting all that information now.
And have any of the participants participated in the Olympics, or we may see them in the Olympics?
You may, yes. I think, actually, if anyone's familiar with Paul Wiley, he is the director of sport at ORTA. He was a FISU participant in the 80s and then went on to the Olympics.
All right.
Yes.
Last question. And have we measured the economic impact to the North Country for this activity? Yeah.
Well, we have the history of what we believe
What do we
ORTA has
anticipate?
that. And
Is this
so
going to generate X million dollars for upstate? Do we have a ballpark?
I don't have a ballpark for you today, no, but I do know that they are doing an economic impact study in 2022 and 2023 as a result of what these games will, and we'll be able to get back to you and let you know what that'll be for sure.
Very good. Great. Anybody else have any questions? It's great. Every time, I've said this at all the meetings I've chaired so far, and this is why I asked Hope to allow us to have some type of special presentation at each meeting. This organization, ESD, does so many cool things, and not everybody knows, including the board members, know everything that's going on here. And we got terrific professional staffs that run these programs, and they're terrific for our state. They create economic activity, and it's exciting. This is so it's very cool to always learn about these things. So thank you very much for the terrific
pleasure.
and enthusiastic presentation.
Thank you.
And look forward to hearing feedback once the events are over and the study is done.
Yes, thank you.
All right, great.